Well, good morning. Thanks for joining me for Psalm 126 on this beautiful fall morning. And this psalm, a psalm of ascents, I like that these ascents just take us to godly thoughts to help set our minds on things above, as Paul says to the Colossians to do. So, 6 verses here. Allow me to read this psalm, these 6 verses, and we'll come back with a few comments. When the Lord brought back, Psalm 126, verse 1, the captivity of Zion, we were like those who dream. Then our mouth was filled with laughter, our tongue with singing. Then they said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. And the Lord has done great things for us, and we are glad. Bring back our captivity, O Lord, as the streams in the south. Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy. He who continually goes forth weeping, bearing seed for sowing, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him. So a short little 6 verse psalm for us. And in verse 1, it's telling us that this is regarding the Jews, the captivity of Zion, who were held as captives. They were held as captives, they were exiled, and they're coming back. This is historically, they're coming back, and the psalm is being sung in reflection and remembrance of that. You know, we were captive and held captive by an enemy, cruel, deadly, hellish enemy. And Ephesians tells us when he, regarding Jesus, Ephesians 4, verse 8, when he ascended on high, he led captivity captive and gave gifts to men. He ascended on high. This is Jesus. And he took us as captives. And he led us out of that captivity, and he's given gifts to us. How good is that? We were like those who dream. Just reading back in the Psalms now, or Psalm 126. You know, Peter was held captive in the book of Acts, the 12th chapter. Herod was being very cruel, extremely cruel, far more cruelty than we could imagine, even in our day and age. And in Acts 12, Peter was likely on death row, literally, and he was liberated by the Lord Himself, exiled, or not exiled, but led out of captivity, I should say. And he thought it was a dream. At first, he didn't realize what he was doing walking through the streets of Jerusalem, not realizing he was actually freed by the Lord Himself from Herod's prison. And he was like one who dreams. And we were like those who dream, says this verse here. Our mouth was filled with laughter. They're just laughing and singing and rejoicing. And then the nations are observing. The Gentile nation is observing. The Lord has done great things for them. And they reflect on those comments. Yes, indeed. The Jews respond, the Lord has done great things for us. And we are glad. We are glad. They reflect on the goodness of the Lord. You know, in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, because at times we all go through seasons of, maybe a discouraging thought or two, or a reflection. Even some might go through a very real depression. And you know, Isaiah tells us in Isaiah 61, verse 3, there's a garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness. So when you're heavy-hearted, Isaiah would say, put on the garment of praise. I wrote in my notes, I don't know where I came up with this. So I didn't come up with it. I read someone who had. The garment of praise sits handsome on a saint's back. Must have been a writer of old, but I like that. The Lord has done great things for us, and the result of thinking on that is we are glad. Bring back our captivity, O Lord, or bring back our fortunes is how it can be translated. It's a tough verse to translate. Some versions use bring back our fortunes. It's tricky. As the streams in the south, or the streams of Negev. I can go with confidence on the streams of Negev or south, because the southern part of Israel, as we know today, the Negev, it's desolate, barren, a desert. But the flash floods come suddenly from north, and it floods. It floods with refreshment. The Negev does. And that's what the Lord does. You think you're in a deserted spot, barren and dry and dusty and bleak. And in a moment's time, when you fix your eyes on the Lord, He can flood you with refreshment. Just the great things He's done for you. Those who sow in tears, verse 5, shall reap in joy. Never forget that the Lord wept. Jesus wept. That short verse in the New Testament, shortest in the Bible. But He also wept not only for His friend Lazarus, but He also wept over Jerusalem, for His city, for His nation. But He also wept after that in Gethsemane for the world. He knows weeping, but He's going to reap in joy. You know, Hebrews 12 reminds us that he on the cross, there was a joy set before Him, and that was humanity. And I'm a part of that, and so are you. Well, he who continually goes forth weeping, bearing seed for sowing. Bear seed for sowing. You know, Jesus talks in Matthew about the seed of God's word, and it seemingly doesn't always take hold. Only 1/4 of the time in the parable that Jesus talks about it did it really take hold to what we would call fruition. But you keep bearing that because you don't know when it's going to take hold or with whom or where it's going to take hold of. You know, the Apostle Paul talks about that in that he talks about him sowing and Apollos watering in 1 Corinthians. Oh, the chapter 3 is there. So he sows, Apollos waters, but it's the Lord who gives the increase. It's God who gives the increase. And shall doubtless come again with rejoicing. Don't doubt you will be rejoicing again if you're in that season. Don't doubt that, because certainly you and I who know the Lord, what the rejoicing in heaven there will be, if not before then, but certainly then in a magnificence beyond experience here on earth, bringing His sheaves with Him. So Psalm 126 for us today to consider the refreshment in dry and dusty times, that there are tears, but there's also joys. And if it's a heavy season for you this day, put on the garment of praise. Isaiah 61:3 might be a good verse to take a peek at a time or two this day. So God bless you. Thanks for joining me in this psalm for this day.